Good day, everybody. It's Andrew here, and welcome back to my channel. Today we have great news for stimulus and great news for seniors as well. Bernie Sanders just doubled down on the stimulus package and said they have to include the Medicare expansion and they have to include the $1,400 stimulus check for seniors. So let's discuss the details in this video, but before we do, don't forget to like this video and subscribe. I also have a second channel, so do me a huge favor, click on the link that's in the description of this video, subscribe to my second channel. I'm going to be giving away a stimulus check on that channel just as a thank you for supporting my work. Now, Democrats are closing in on a deal on this next stimulus package. Bernie Sanders is putting his foot down, saying that Medicare expansion and the $1,400 stimulus check has to be included in this package. Now Democrats have decided to pay for this stimulus bill by taxing billionaires, by creating essentially a wealth tax for those who are billionaires in this country, as well as a minimum corporate tax to make sure that billionaire companies are not paying 0% in taxes. And all of this is happening as Bernie Sanders is putting his foot down, saying that the stimulus check for seniors has to be included in this package. Now, Democrats have said that they will have a framework for this package by the end of this week. And Nancy Pelosi actually said they would have it by last night. Of course, we'll have to wait and see when they actually announce the framework, but we expect to have that in a couple of days. One of the main reasons Democrats are trying to get the framework done now is because the Virginia governorship election is happening next week, and they want to be able to advertise this stimulus package before that election and kind of use this as a barometer to see whether or not stimulus helps them get reelected. Remember, guys, experts are saying that in 2022, Democrats will do another stimulus check package before those midterm elections to try and maintain control of the House and maintain control of the Senate. Now, we already have some history showing that stimulus checks help you get reelected. In Georgia, those two Senate seat elections were won by Democrats because they promised a third stimulus check. They won the elections, and then they delivered a third stimulus check. The same thing happened with the governor race in California. Governor Newsom was doing really bad in the polls. Then he did a fourth and even fifth stimulus check at the state level in California, and he ended up winning that election. So now Democrats are trying to do the same thing once again in Virginia. They want to get the framework for the stimulus package. They won't actually get the stimulus package done by next week, but they want at least the framework so they can advertise this stimulus package in Virginia and see if it helps them win that election. Because if it does, it's going to be a really good signal to Democrats that, hey, approving more stimulus checks helps win elections, which means they will probably do another stimulus check in 2022. Let's watch this short little clip that describes what's going on and the fact that Democrats are trying to get this stimulus package done now before this election to help them win that election in Virginia. And then we'll discuss the details, what Bernie Sanders just did for the $1,400 stimulus check, and what we expect to happen next.
A ticking clock for President Biden as he races to lock down the most important deal of his presidency so far ahead of a high-profile foreign trip tomorrow. Democrats still trying to pay for Mr. Biden's social safety net and climate plan, expected to reach just shy of $2 trillion, with a required minimum tax on corporations and the richest Americans. Breaking this morning, a new proposal to tax billionaires' assets. The plan could face constitutional hurdles. For weeks, the president's proposals have been held up by crucial moderate Democrats like Joe Manchin and Kyrsten Sinema.
The bottom line is we're just trying to do something that we can that helps people, but also not putting a burden on everybody else.
Overnight, President Biden meeting with both senators at the White House. It's been a month-long slog for the president to get the plan through Congress, and he's had to compromise along the way, possibly abandoning key priorities like expanding Medicare coverage, paid family leave, and tuition-free community college.
The last thing we need to do is to pile on with another massive, reckless tax and spending spree.
And there are global implications as well. Not getting agreement on his major climate proposals could weaken the president's argument at those upcoming summits that other countries must join the U.S. in taking major steps to combat climate change.
Number one, we stand for working people in the middle class.
Failure to reach a deal could also be costly for the president and for Democrats ahead of Virginia's governor's race less than a week away. The president campaigning there last night, slamming the Republican in the race, trying to highlight his past praise of former President Trump.
won't stand next to Donald Trump now that the campaign's on.
Well, Peter, Election Day is upon us. What are the polls showing?
Yeah, there's a new poll, Savannah, actually released just a matter of hours ago, and it shows a deadlocked race in Virginia. Among likely voters, Democrat Terry McAuliffe leads the Republican Glenn Youngkin by just a single point, 49-48. Of course, that is well within the margin of error. And this race is not just crucial for Virginia. It's really viewed as a bellwether ahead of next year's midterms, testing President Biden's popularity in a state that he won just a year ago by 10 points and potentially demonstrating Republican strength less than a year after Donald Trump lost the White House.
So very similar to those Senate seat elections in Georgia. Democrats were basically in a dead tie with Republicans, but then they did a stimulus check promise, and they ended up winning both of those seats. Both of those elections were basically at a tie, and they won both of them. So it really seemed like stimulus checks worked, and they're kind of trying to do a similar tactic in this election in Virginia. Now, this is set to take place next week on Tuesday, November 2nd. So again, they won't actually get the stimulus checks out by then, but they're hoping to at least have the framework done so they can use that kind of as an advertisement to try and win that election. Now, a lot of this has to do with President Biden's popularity or unpopularity. Now, if you look on your screen, you'll see that at the beginning of his presidency, Biden had an approval rating of about 54% and a disapproval rating of about 35%. Now, that has almost flipped in just 10 months. Now, his approval rating is down to 43 and his disapproval rating is up to 50%. Now, guys, let us know in the comments, do you approve or disapprove of President Biden's work so far? Just 10 months into his presidency. Let us know in the comments below. But in any case, these polls are one of the main reasons why Democrats are worried about those elections. They're worried that Democrats who are running for governorship, running for Senate seats, running for the House, that if President Biden is unpopular, that's going to hurt them as well down the line because the president really reflects on Democrats down the election poll, right? So this is one of the main reasons they're trying to get these stimulus packages done because they want to boost President Biden's popularity. Like if you look at this poll, if you look at this chart tracking the polls, back in March and April when they actually approved the stimulus package, they approved the third stimulus check in March and they sent most of them in April. His approval rating was at 53%. Really, really good. That was almost his all-time high. And now that it's been almost a year since the last stimulus check, his approval rating has plummeted. So a lot of Democrats are thinking if they approve more stimulus check, they can kind of turn around this disapproval rating. Now, of course, this isn't the only issue here. I mean, stimulus checks is just one thing out of many, but stimulus checks have been proven to make a massive difference. Now, this is one reason why Bernie Sanders wants to do a $1,000 stimulus check for seniors. So let's quickly talk about that check and what Bernie Sanders just did to try and make sure that seniors get that check. Well, first of all, Bernie wanted to do a $1,000 stimulus check to help seniors pay for medical expenses as Medicare gets permanently expanded. Now, just to clarify, a lot of people are saying, oh, well, I can only use it on medical expenses. It's not really a stimulus check. But then Bernie Sanders came out and said that it would most likely be sent out on a prepaid debit card that could be used anywhere that Visa is accepted. So although it's being marketed as a stimulus check for Medicare expenses, it seems you would be able to use it anywhere that Visa is accepted. Almost like Bernie Sanders is using Medicare as a way to market the stimulus check, but really you could use it on anything you'd like, if that kind of makes sense. Well, he wanted to do a $1,000 check for seniors. Of course, we expect this to apply to SSI and SSDI as well, but we yet have to see the details of that. Well, then the Senior Citizens League, which is a liberal group which kind of advocates for seniors, wants to have that expanded to $1,400. Then President Biden and Pelosi came out and said it could be as low as $800. So currently we're waiting to see how big that stimulus check could be, but it is most likely to end up in this package. Joe Manchin came out and said he doesn't want the stimulus check for seniors. Of course, he doesn't want to help anybody except for the coal miners and those who are donating to his campaign in West Virginia. And he also said he doesn't want to expand Medicare to include vision, dental, and hearing care. Well, Bernie Sanders doubled down and he drew a red line in the sand. And he said, we have to expand Medicare. This bill has been cut back so much. They've taken so much out of this stimulus package already. The one thing they're not going to take out is the expansion of Medicare and the $1,400 stimulus check. Bernie Sanders said, we're going to expand Medicare to include vision, dental, and hearing care, and we're going to include a stimulus check for seniors. He put his foot down and said that to Joe Manchin. Now, that is really, really great news for seniors, because as the stimulus package has gone down from $3.5 to about $1.75 trillion, a lot of things are being cut out. So it's great news to see that Bernie Sanders is putting his foot down and has said that we will include the stimulus check for seniors in this package. So again, really, really good news for seniors. So how exactly do Democrats plan on paying for this? Well, we've talked about originally Democrats wanted to do a tax on corporations, raising the tax rate from 21% to 26%, as well as an increase in the income tax for those who make over $400,000 per year. But Kyrsten Sinema from Arizona pretty much ruined that plan and rejected both of those options that Democrats wanted to use. So in a compromise, President Biden, Nancy Pelosi, and Chuck Schumer offered Kyrsten Sinema to do a billionaire tax. This would essentially be a wealth tax that taxes billionaires for their assets, not just their income. So if they hold $1 billion in stocks or in real estate, they would have to pay an annual wealth tax on those assets, and that money will be used to pay for the stimulus package. Now, guys, let me know in the comments what you think of this. Are you happy with the potential of a billionaire wealth tax? Do you think it's fair, or do you think it's not enough? Do you think we should be taxing millionaires as well? Originally, this tax was supposed to apply to millionaires as well. Anyone who makes over $400,000 per year, which if you make $400,000 per year for a few years, you're basically a millionaire, right? So basically, originally the plan was to tax almost all millionaires across the board. Now it's just going to be billionaires. And this would essentially affect only a few hundred people in the United States, people like Elon Musk, Jeff Bezos. These people would be affected by this tax, and they're saying it's going to be enough to pay for the majority of the stimulus package. This is very similar to the wealth tax that Senator Elizabeth Warren has been trying to include in these packages for a couple of years. Now, her package is a little more aggressive. It taxes millionaires as well, not just billionaires, but it's a very similar idea. Now, let's quickly take a look and see Elizabeth Warren's plan to include a wealth tax on millionaires to kind of get a sense of how this would work. Then we'll discuss kind of how this is similar to what Democrats are currently trying to do with billionaires.
Elizabeth Warren introducing what she's calling an ultra-millionaire tax. It would be on fortunes of over $50 million, impacting the 100,000 richest households in the United States. Senator Warren says she expects the proposal to bring in at least $3 trillion in revenue over 10 years. And joining us right now to talk about all of it is Senator Elizabeth Warren. She serves, of course, on both the Banking and Finance Committees. Senator, thank you for joining us. You have stirred up quite a conversation, and we want to have it with you this morning. In particular, what I wanted to start here, I had a conversation with Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen last week, and I asked her about the prospect of a wealth tax, and she said she thought it was, quote, very difficult with implementation problems. And I wanted to understand your thought about how this would work.
So I just want to start by saying if Janet Yellen is all on board except for implementation, we're in really good shape on this, because the implementation part is really a lot easier than it looks. Remember the way that the wealth tax is built. It says if your fortune is below $50 million, nothing. We're not talking to you. If it's above $50 million, your 50 millionth and first dollar, you got to pitch in 2 cents, 2 cents for every dollar above that. You hit $1 billion in assets, you got to pitch in a few pennies more. The nice thing about the way it's set up is we learned from some of the mistakes they made in Europe. So this version of the wealth tax says it covers all of your property. Doesn't matter whether it's held in stock or in real estate or in racehorses. Everything is covered, so there's no point in moving property around. Also, wherever you hold it, it is covered, whether you hold it here in the U.S., whether you hold it in the Cayman Islands. And remember, we are already valuing property. We do it at death. We value all real estate every year for real estate taxes. And valuing stock is not very hard. So I think we've kind of got the implementation part of this locked down.
Senator, what do you make, though, of the idea that some people believe this would be considered confiscatory, but perhaps more importantly, that oftentimes these are, quote unquote, unrealized gains? We've seen remarkable gains in the stock market this year, but who knows what's going to happen next year? We've seen Bitcoin millionaires and billionaires get made. But of course, it's a very volatile asset, if it's an asset at all.
You know, Andrew, I hope you're embarrassed to ask if 2 cents is confiscatory. This is 2 cents on assets above $50 million. And just to put that in a little context, since the pandemic, our 660 billionaires in America have increased their wealth by $1.3 trillion. This wealth tax will raise about $3 trillion over 10 years, as you started out. And what people should be thinking about is, what does that tell you about the top end of the wealth distribution, that a 2 cent wealth tax, like I said, a little bit more on billionaires, but a 2 cent wealth tax will raise $3 trillion over 10 years. And that's money we reinvest in America.
What would happen if in a given year your net worth was valued at $50, $100 million, $1 billion or whatnot, never realized, of course, you pay the tax on it, and the next year somehow, for whatever reason, you get wiped out? I know nobody's thinking that Jeff Bezos is getting wiped out tomorrow, yeah. But I know there's a lot of people who think, for example, that Tesla stock is a particularly volatile stock. And so one year, Elon Musk may pay one rate, and then the next year clearly wouldn't be paying on that. Do you take that as a loss against that or no?
Okay, so obviously this wealth tax has some complications, right? Because it's different than taxing income. Now, when you're taxing income, it's really straightforward. You made this amount of money, this is the tax rate, and you pay that tax. And when you're taxing wealth, you're taxing assets which fluctuate in price. Perfect example, Tesla stock. Tesla stock just crossed $8 trillion as a total market cap, total valuation for the company. But just 6 months ago, it was half of that, right? And then next year, it could be half of that again. So some people are saying it's unfair to, for example, tax Elon Musk now at $1 trillion valuation. Then next year it drops in half, and then he basically paid more taxes than he kind of should have in his mind. That's how he would feel, because now the company is worth less. So personally, I don't see a problem with it. Now, in Elizabeth Warren's plan, it would only be over any valuation over $50 million. So anyone who has a net worth over $50 million, this tax would start applying on the dollar after $50 million in net worth. It wouldn't be under that. It would just be over $50 million. So the first $50 million in net worth would not have this tax. So it's hard to feel bad for people who have $50 million, right? Now, the Democrats' plan that they're currently trying to do actually only applies to billionaires. So let's quickly take a look. The proposed tax would hit the gains of those with more than $1 billion in assets or income of more than $100 million a year, and that would have to be $100 million per year for at least, I believe, let's take a look here, 3 consecutive years. So you would have to make $100,000 per year, $100 million per year for 3 consecutive years until this tax would affect you, or have assets of more than $1 billion. So first of all, this would really only affect billionaires, and second of all, an example of this would be Jeff Bezos. Let's say he has, for example, $100 billion in Amazon stock. Now, that would be taxed at a 2% tax rate in Elizabeth Warren's plan. Now, the exact tax rate has actually not been announced in the Democrats' plan, but all we know is they would do a wealth tax on billionaires, specifically anyone owning over $1 billion in assets or making over $100 million per year. So it looks like this is probably going to end up in this package. It's only going to affect a couple of hundred people like Elon Musk, Jeff Bezos, but it's a pretty historic plan, and it's going to go a long way in paying for the stimulus package. On top of that, they also want to do a minimum corporate tax to make sure that billionaire corporations are not paying a 0% interest rate. And this would apply to companies that make more than $1 billion in profit annually. So it wouldn't apply to all corporations, just the giant corporations that make over $1 billion per year in profit. So guys, with that said, this is huge news. Democrats are one step closer to approving this stimulus package, as the idea of how to pay for it was one of the main hurdles that Democrats were trying to overcome, and now it looks like they've come to an agreement. Now, we do expect a framework on this package by the end of this week, at which point we should know how big that stimulus check for seniors is going to be. Is it going to be $800? Is it going to be $1,000? Or is it going to be $1,400? We'll have to wait and see. But guys, we should have a lot of updates in the next few days, so don't forget to subscribe, and I will keep you posted on the next two stimulus packages, Social Security changes, and daily news updates as well. So guys, with that said, thank you so much for watching, and until the next video, take care and have a great day.